are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good, good. Welcome to our Patient Insight video series. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you here. And thank you for sharing your experiences about Will and how the coronavirus has impacted your family and Will's care.
That's right.
People who don't know a great deal about MPS II, please could you tell us a little bit about the condition and how it affects Will?
Yeah, well, Will's 20 now, but he was diagnosed at about 2.5 years of age. But in fairness, he had problems from birth. So with Will, it affects almost every part of his body. And by now, obviously, it's a degenerative disease. So by now, it's affecting his mobility. He can still walk, but he's increasingly using a walker or a wheelchair. Over the years, it's been his heart. He has problems. It has affected Will's brain. So he's got CNS involvement. So for Will, it really has sort of attacked every part of his body. Up to about the age of 3, he could talk. And then suddenly he lost his speech. So that part of his brain was attacked. It's mobility, it's joints, it's his heart, hearing, sight, absolutely everything really, unfortunately. He has mild seizures. However, all this is very much under control. And with the advent of enzyme replacement therapy when he was 7, he became actually quite well. So although this sounds like a really bad news story, he's sort of quite well in himself, and he takes up the enzyme, we've been told, very well. And that's not the same for all young men or boys with hunters. So we're blessed with that in that respect. We were told he would probably pass by the time he was 4, then 11, and 15, and now he's 20. So, the enzyme replacement therapy that he has weekly for Will has been a massive lifesaver. The trial that Will is on is trying to get that enzyme into the brain. So Will at 11 was accepted onto a trial called the IT trial, which is an intrathecal trial. So what they're trying to do, hard words, medical words, they're trying to put the enzyme that he gets weekly into his body into the brain. And they're doing that via a port which goes into his spinal fluid. And they're hoping that the spinal fluid bathes the brain, which it does, and will start to either hold Will's sort of mental capacity where it is, and his sort of understanding and all that side of the work, the brain side of the work, steady, or indeed even improve it. At first it was a bit scary because we sort of knew that it was going to get stopped. One, because we were travelling not a long way, but a fairly long way. Depending on the M6, it could be hours, but so they spoke to us, and we expected to have the dose in March. It's once a month, so it's not too bad, We expected to have that dose in March, and then just then, of course, the lockdown hit. And so just as we were about to have that dose, so we all agreed that obviously we couldn't carry on. However, the trial is what they call paused. It's not stopped, and it's not even really suspended, it's paused. So the drug company behind the trial, and of course the consultants at Salford Royal and the research nurse, they've been in touch with us weekly, really. That they've sort of made it very clear that it will continue. And in actual fact, this week when we spoke to them, they said that it could be as soon as July now that we go back on, possibly even June, but I think probably realistically July. At first I was panic stricken. I thought, oh, that's it, he's had it, they're going to stop it, they'll stop funding it. But I felt more reassured by the fact that the research lead, I think she's a sister, I don't want to say nurse because she's probably much higher up than that. The research nurse, she phones us every week and still collects the data. So, like his temperature, blood pressure. So it makes you feel like he's still part of it, Yeah. And the thing about Will is he's their only patient on that trial. And they put themselves out having him, to be honest, because I believe, and I think this is right, that Will's the only adult who's on the IT trial, because the 3rd and 4th phases were all young children, which is right because they want to stop the damage before it hits the brain.
Yeah. How has it affected Will? Have you noticed any effect?
Well, our problem was at the same time they stopped his weekly enzyme replacement therapy.
Yeah.
So it was difficult to know whether it was that one, his normal weekly treatment, or whether it was the IT one.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't like to say that. Now, it was a very bad effect, actually. He stopped sleeping, he stopped toileting properly, he was uncomfortable, his joints were aching, he was miserable. Talking with the consultants and actually with some adult young men who have enzyme replacement therapy weekly, they haven't got the brain involved, so they can tell you, they were telling me that that's how they felt. And I could see that Will was really miserable. So the consultant put the enzyme replacement therapy back in, the weekly one, not the trial, the weekly one back in. We missed 6 doses, 6 weeks of dose because of infection control and nurses being needed, for more urgent jobs and all that, which we totally understood. That wasn't a problem. But when we could see him deteriorating, it was quite frightening, to be honest, how quickly he went down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And went back to all the symptoms that he had prior to receiving treatment. Now, we've had 3 doses back now, and he's already chirped back up. So I think the enzyme replacement therapy to the body was really affecting him missing it.
Yeah.
We've agreed with the consultant, and as I said, we've had a conference call with them almost every week, that we, Rena Sharma, who's the lead there, and Maria, who's the nurse, that we try and go back on the IT in July, or if we're allowed to and all being well. Of course, they're in the northeast, Manchester way. And of course, they've got a worse spike at the moment, haven't they, of corona? So they're having to be more careful again at the moment. But they seemed hopeful that we would be able to at least go and start that again in July. So, as I say, it's a bit difficult to know which drug, which part of, his body is affected. The sleeping issue could have been the IT, but it also could have been pain. Now, Will can't talk because he lost his speech. So we have to sort of try and interpret how he feels. You know what I mean? So it's been difficult for us to say what the effect of missing the trial drug has been, really. Whether which it was.
Have you found that speaking to your consultants, obviously has it been through telephone call or video call?
Both, yeah.
Both. Have you found that to be a positive experience, negative experience?
I think it's always a bit more difficult, because I think at first it's hard to do it, isn't it? Because you're sort of interrupting each other, and I think we felt, at first I felt a bit, I'm somebody that likes to see things written down, but I also appreciated the effort they were making, because for them it's working very differently. And they actually said that, they were really relaxed about it and said it's just a totally different way of working. So I think we all have to learn how to do it and wait for each other to finish. And, and then you might say something, then you think, oh, that came over in the wrong way when you didn't mean it like that. And it's all a bit like, and after one conference actually the lead research nurse phoned us back and said, oh, did you get what the consultant meant? Because she didn't. She felt it wasn't as clear as it. And that's not being rude to the consultant. It was just, she was worried that, in actual fact, we'd interpreted it in the way it was meant, whereas she hadn't heard it like that. So it is really different, isn't it, than when you're face to face. And also, of course, they're not seeing Will.
Exactly.
So that's worrying, that nobody medical is actually seeing him. Or checking him. And we're very blessed on a trial because he's seen by a consultant who's an expert every month. Now, that wouldn't normally happen. I mean, you normally see somebody 6 monthly. The other good thing that's happened, though, is that we chose for all Will's care to be in Salford because it seemed to make sense. So we could have had a local metabolic team, and we could have had the trial just at Salford. We couldn't have, unfortunately, the trial here in Birmingham for adults because it's not a designated same type of status, I don't think. But that consultant there he wrote us a massive letter, you know, as coronavirus hit, saying, we're here for you. If you need this, you need that, and here's what to do, which we found incredibly reassuring. Because when you're miles away from the team that you're working with, and you're thinking, well, he just say, please God, that doesn't happen, but the worst happened. And he had to go into the local hospital, which is a big hospital, QE. But, you know, when they don't know him and they've got no, you know, and you're just sort of panicking, really.
Yeah.
And that was so helpful. That was
Fantastic.
so good.
Laura, thank you so much for today. It's been really great for you to share your experiences with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I just want to say it's all been really positive. So I'm pleased to say that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Thanks for listening.